Hi, everyone. I'm Arlene with Beacons of Balance.
And I'm
here
Joanne. How
with
you doing?
co-host Joanne, and we have our wonderful guest speaker that I'll shortly introduce, Sunny Johnston. But welcome to Beacons of Balance. Thank you for being with us. This is a station that's all about being in balance. Our world is a world of duality, up, down, black, white, left, right, whatever. It's never going to go away. And we're trying to live it in balance because everything is in such chaos, especially right now with everything that's going on in the world. Yeah. So we'll share little pearls of wisdom from ourselves and for people we bring on to help bring it back into balance. It's for ourselves also and you. And remember, you're important.
Wow. Sister, it has been like, I feel, how long has it been? Anyway, I'm looking at your bio. Oh my God, girl, we need like 5 podcasts just to let everybody know.
You don't have to share all that stuff. Don't you worry.
Oh my God. No, like I'm just looking at the highlights. You know, everyone knows you're a world-renowned psychic medium, which is very cool. You're a regular contributor to Women's World magazine. I did not know that, Sunny. I was at a grocery store and I opened up like, what? So cool. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of fun to. My granddaughter thought it was really cool, and my picture was in the magazine that was in the store at Target. She's like, "Oh my gosh!"
I know. I was doing this in the aisle. I swear to God. And then you penned like 22 books. Holy cow! And then all the meditation CDs. Well, we don't call them CDs anymore. They're probably what, MP3s now. And then the book that really puts you on the map. My favorite, by the way. I promote this constantly.
Yeah,
I just told people on my Facebook, get this book because it covers all the archangels and your amazing story. And then you also have a book, Love Never Ends. And then you've got Elevate Your Life. And then you got this new thing, Intuition 365 Playground, 30 years experience. And then, oh my gosh, what else? Jewelry line. Hello. I don't know how.
Really? You have a jewelry line?
When do you have time to do this?
Oh, wow.
You should see her.
I'm a blinger. I'm a blinger, Sonny. I'm a blinger.
I know, me too, girl. I love it. I know.
You're the bling chicks. You should see her jewelry. It is. And she has one with a lighthouse, don't you?
Yep, I sure do.
Oh my God. We have to have that.
Lighthouse. We need to get that for each other for Christmas, Arlene.
Yeah.
It's like, is that Swarovski crystal, Sonny?
Swarovski. You got it.
Oh,
look at you. You know all of it, girl. Good job.
I know your story. I totally know your story. So I would love to, start with your backstory because you know which one I found so interesting is when your brother, was it Shad, when he was 5?
Yeah.
He saw the angels in your house, but you felt them pin you. Oh.
Yeah, there's 2 pieces. The way I opened up to this world in the first place was when I was 13 years old. I went to bed one night and I woke up in the middle of the night and rolled over and I saw a beautiful, colorful, winged being above my bed. And I'd never, I didn't have any experience with angels. I didn't have any background in angels. I was raised not religious, but around, all my family was Mormon. And so I was from Utah, and angels are not a big topic in the Mormon church. And so,
really?
They're not. And so, it wasn't like, I didn't know even what it was. So this feeling that I got was so that's what it was. And I was so calm, and I'm 13. So I just rolled over and went back to sleep like, oh, that's so nice. And then when I woke up in the morning, then my head kicked in and I'm like, oh my God, what was that? And I ran downstairs and told my mom, and then she's like, what was your guardian angel? And that kind of opened the door to all of this in my reality, which was 40 years ago last month.
Wow.
Now, Sonny, were you going through something, if I could ask, were you going through something at that period at 13?
For sure I was. I mean, who isn't at 13,
right?
I
know, 13, yes. I mean, in general, but I'm asking if there was something significant that occurred, some illness or something in the,
I lived in Salt Lake City, Utah. I wasn't Mormon, and at that time, 90% of the population was, so I didn't fit in. I was overweight, so I didn't fit in. I went to classes a couple years ahead of me, so I didn't fit in. So I was in a really kind of depressed state because that's all I wanted to do was be like everybody else, and I wasn't.
Of course, yeah.
And then I had an angel experience, which just made me not fit in even more.
Oh my God.
So the story that Joanne is talking about is a great story, and I've shared it a lot because it gives a great idea of kind of the power of the angels and that also that you don't have to be of a particular belief, a particular age, anything in order to be open to them. And so what happened was just a couple of months after I'd had that experience where I saw my guardian angel, I had been since then having almost like taking class with them. I would ask questions and I would get answers. It was phenomenal. And so this particular day, my parents had decided to go out to dinner because they were arguing a lot. There's a lot of negative energy in our home. My parents were fighting a lot, especially around money, finances, worries, things like that. So they decided to go out for dinner and they were going to leave me with my brother. So I was 13, he was 5. They'd never left me with him before. And the biggest reason really was I just wasn't a kid person. Like I didn't really like all the girls babysat at 13. I wasn't that girl. So they left me with him and it was first time. And so, I wanted to do a good job, kind of. And so they left, and about 20 minutes later, my brother, who was upstairs playing, he came running down the stairs and he's crying and he says, Sonny, all of my friends, now I ought to back up for a moment here. His friends were red, yellow, green, and blue shapes, triangles, squares, circles with wings. Those were his friends. And he preferred to play with those friends than actual human friends since he was 3. So I knew about his friends, but I also was like, whatever, dude, you're just making this up, right? So I'd kind of roll my eyes. And so he ran down the stairs. He's like, all my friends are black, brown, and green frowny faces. And so his friends had gone and it had this negative energy, whatever, had taken its place. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to be the big sister and I'm going to go up. And so I went to go upstairs because what I was going to do was abracadabra because I didn't know what else to do. So I was going to do a little abracadabra and then make it all better, and thought that would work because I really wasn't sure that I believed him anyway, right?
Yeah.
But when I went to go up the stairs, there was this energy force that pushed me back.
Oh, wow.
And that got my attention. That scared me. And so then I grabbed his hand and we ran to the back brick wall of our house. And we sat up against that wall for 5 hours until my parents came home.
Oh my goodness.
When they came home, I told my mom what happened. I was scared now. I was like shaking and I told her what happened. And she said, okay, well, I'll have my friend Leo come over. And Leo was an underground psychic in the 70s and 80s in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Wow.
There were no above ground psychics.
I was going to say, you were a Salt Lake City girl.
With the Mormons. Holy crap.
Yeah, it was not a okay thing. And so she said, well, I'll call her and I'll have her come over and she'll take care of it, basically. And so I'm like, I don't know what take care of it means, but okay. So she came over the next morning and she said, my mom and I were in the house and kitchen with her. And she said, okay, I'm going to just do a little blessing clearing on the house. I'm going to clear the negative energy. And I'm going to call on Archangel Michael. And once that is complete, he'll take all the negative energy and you'll be fine. Like the house will be good. And I'm thinking, that sounds way too easy. Like you do not know what I felt. And she's like, no, that's what we do. And it works. I'm like, okay, whatever. So my little brother, 5, he goes out to ride his big wheel. He's out there riding his big wheel up and down the street. Do you guys remember big wheels?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Long time ago, right? So he's out there riding his big wheel. And so he doesn't know what we're doing. He's just out playing and being a 5-year-old. And so my mom and I and Leo, she says, let's go to the foyer of the house, the front of the house. And we held hands. And she said, okay, we're going to hold hands. I'm going to want you to close your eyes and I'm going to do the invocation, which is why that book is called Invoking the Archangels.
Oh, cool.
And so she did the invocation, and my mom and her got into this place. They closed their eyes. Well, I closed one eye because I'm like, I want to see what's going to happen. And I'm a very curious person by nature, and I kind of like my nose and everything. That's my nature. So I keep one eye open. So I had my eye open, and she did a blessing, a prayer, an intention, and this was the gist of it. It was longer than it, but this was a gist. She said, I invoke the blue light of Archangel Michael to surround and protect this home from any negative energy or entities, seen or unseen. So it was pretty simple, but it was expanded. She went a little bit deeper. And so when we get done with that, my eye was open and not one thing did I see. Nothing happened. Okay. So my mom, she opens her eyes and she goes, oh, I already feel so much better. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, so I'm just getting ready to tell them, sorry guys, but nothing happened because I had my eye open and nothing happened. So I'm just getting ready to say that. And my little brother, who was outside the whole time, he comes running in right there, front door, and he opens the door wide and he goes, Mommy, there is a great big blue bubble around our house.
Oh, I got chills.
I know, I'm getting chills here.
Yeah.
And
an orb.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so then I'm like, okay, well, maybe something happened.
That was your
But what that did, the cool thing that it did, so it's a great story, but what was really cool about it was as soon as that energy was invited, it appeared. And my brother, who didn't know anything that was happening, saw it. He saw the blue energy surround the house to protect the house. But me, inside the house, my nature as an intuitive, I'm a feeler. That's my strongest gift is feeling. Yeah. And because I had my eye open, I was focused on seeing. But I'm a feeler.
Okay.
So I missed the experience of feeling the energy because my attention was on trying to see it.
More focused to say, yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it was a great experience. And that just kind of, when I saw my guardian angel that opened the door, well, that experience just kind of swung it right off of the hinges. And I've been doing it for 40 years.
Ever since.
So do you think, or did you have any other experience before you were the age 13?
Not that I'm conscious of. I had a lot of what I would say, I grew up I was in the Philippines for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And so from the age of about 1 to 6, I lived in the Philippines, and I had really strong spiritual connections to the people, the land, the energy, like the Asian energy. I've always been connected to that since I was young. And I saw things then that at that time I didn't know if they were real or not real because I was a kid, right? But when I moved to the States, I don't have any cognizant recollection of any type of metaphysical, spiritual experience outside of knowing. I just knew things. I knew things that I shouldn't know at a young age. And so I had those types of experiences. As far as visual things, that was the first time I'd ever visually seen something.
Wow. Sonny, when you were in the Philippines, I know they're really known for their special healers that they put their hands right into the body.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever witness that when you were there?
I didn't. The only thing that I witnessed that was really interesting was Dad had actually taken me to the farmer's market, and I was 3 years old, and I was up on his shoulders, and they were having an Easter celebration. And in the Easter celebration in the Philippines on the main road, what they would do is they actually had a cross and people volunteered to be crucified to the cross, literally hung with their hands on the cross as people walked them down this particular pathway. And then I think it was every half a mile or so, a new person would volunteer. And that was like a sacred blessing to them. But me, my dad's 6'5". So me as a 3-year-old on top of a 6'5", and all the Filipino people that are short, I saw, my dad didn't mean for me to see that, but I saw the whole thing. And I asked him, I said, Daddy, what are they doing? Because I saw the blood. I mean, it was traumatizing for a 3-year-old. And he said, they're practicing their religion. And that planted a seed for me that then I went to Utah.
Wow.
And more religion. And I had a very strong aversion to religion because of what I witnessed. And then, of course, being raised in an environment that I wasn't religious was a real struggle for me. I had a lot of conflict internally for many, many years. I don't any longer, but it was a huge challenge. So that was probably the biggest thing that stood out to me that I took with me as far as the sacred energy and things like that and healing. The people of the Philippines were such a gentle, like I love Thailand, same energy.
Thailand, they're very spiritual.
Just that
like
gentleness.
Yeah, China's different, but yeah, Thailand.
China's different. I've been to China too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not the same.
No.
So, Sunny, take us to the point when you were like, I think you were 18 when you had a baby and you were in the hospital. Something happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that with
was actually,
Arizona?
this was actually my son Crew.
Oh,
So when I was 18, I found out I was pregnant and was not planned, not prepared in any way. I was on birth control pills. I had strep throat, and so I'd taken antibiotics. And back then, they didn't know the antibiotics
yeah.
made birth control pills not work. So when I found out I was pregnant, I was devastated. Like, I never planned to actually have children.
I can't.
And so when I found out, I was number one, I was angry. And I was scared to death. Like, how am I going to raise a child? And then I would look at the guy that it was my boyfriend, who was an alcoholic at 19. And I'm like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? Right. And so it was a really difficult pregnancy. So by the time I was 4 months pregnant, I developed toxemia, which had turned into preeclampsia, which turned into eclampsia. So I was on complete bed rest most of the pregnancy. And that pregnancy was, the way I look at it is my body was toxic because my thoughts were toxic. My feelings were toxic. It literally took over my body. And when you have toxemia and eclampsia, it's your body is trying to basically kill the baby and you. Like, you can't function without medical intervention. You can't live without medical intervention. And so I was on a lot of medications. When I finally went in to have my son, I was induced, did a 34-hour labor. I dilated to 1/2 of 1 centimeter. And they sent me home. And so I went home. And then 10 days later, they brought me back in, induced me again, 36 hours of labor. And I had a stroke while I was in labor.
You had a stroke?
I did. My blood pressure was like 260 over 220, some crazy number.
Wow.
And so they rushed me in to do an emergency C-section to try to save one of us because they didn't think they were going to be able to save both of us. And so they took the baby. My son was healthy, and that was beautiful and amazing. But I, within a couple of days, developed 106.3 degree temperature. And I had that temperature and that infection for almost 3 weeks. So the baby went home and I did not. And it was a very, very difficult time. I know a lot of people recognize and understand NDEs now, but we didn't know what those were then. And we didn't talk about them, certainly. And so most of that time I kind of spent I was out of my body almost the entire time. They didn't know what to do for me. So I was literally from my breast to my knees, just oozing infection.
Oh my God.
They went back in and they did another C-section and went in to see if they could find any utensils. They thought maybe they left something inside of me when they did the cesarean. And what ended up happening is that about 2.5 weeks into it, my doctor came in and he sat me down. I was by myself because I couldn't be around people either. I had one visitor and that was my dad because they didn't know what I had. So they didn't know how to handle it. And so I was by myself and I was 18. Well, I had just turned 19 at this point. And they said, we don't think you're going to make it through the night. And there's nothing else we can do. We're taking you off the antibiotics. They're not working. We need to know who your son goes to if you don't live.
That's heavy stuff.
And it was huge. And the thing was, I was very naive at that age. I had been raised in Salt Lake City, which there's kind of a bubble of protection around kids in general there. And I just moved to California and I was like, I just had a baby. Like, people don't die having babies. And at this time it was 1990. And I'm in a hospital. Like, that's where you go to get help. And you're just telling me you can't do it. And like, I just was very naive in thinking that, well, if you go to the hospital and you're sick, they make you better. Right. That was just my kind of thought. And so when the doctor left, that's when I realized how sick I was. I didn't know because I was so out of my body. I just really didn't know. And when I sat with that, I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm going to die. Like, I haven't seen my son since he was 2 days old and I'm not going to live. And so I felt intuitively that, number one, I needed to ask for help. And so I asked. I didn't know how to ask for help because I had a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and really struggled with those types of value and worth and all those things. So I called all of my family who were all religious, and I was not and had a lot of issue with it. But I called them all and I just said, I need I need prayers. I need love. I need healing. I need light. Like, I need something. It was a $323 phone bill because that's what back when you paid for long distance, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I did that. And then as I laid there, so my arms were strapped down because of my infection, because it was so painful. So I was in, if you can imagine, laying down in the bed, I was in like a open-hearted, open position.
Yeah.
And Archangel Raphael appeared at my feet.
You actually saw him?
I saw him. I saw him. I felt him. I saw the beautiful green emerald energy at the foot of my bed. And he just told me to breathe in his energy. So I would breathe in the green, and I would breathe out what was like sticky tar. That's how I perceived it. And I did that until I fell asleep somewhere. But over the next 12 hours, I was in that kind of state. And when I woke up, my fever had finally broke.
Wow.
And
did the angel give you any messages when he appeared to you?
There was no communication outside of you are healed.
And it's like telepathic?
Yes, it was all telepathic.
Right,
even when I was, when people ask like, well, did you have an NDE? I didn't have what people would call the traditional NDE, because most people, when they have that near-death experience, they see a white light and they go to the light. I didn't see anything. I saw what was happening to my body. So I was above my body in the room. I saw my nurses. Like, I know I still to this day can see. I had a male nurse, which I was so embarrassed because, again, I'm only 18. I had a male nurse that would come in and he would clean the infection like they clean burn victims. They'd have to scrape off the infection. And it was horribly painful. So I think I would just check out. But when I would come in, he had 3 cowlicks on the top of his head. I'll never forget him. I don't even know what his face looks like. I only saw from the higher vision, right? Sure. So when I was having those NDEs, I never went to a light. So I don't think I was ever going to leave. I don't ever feel like I had the choice, because if I would have had the choice, I think I would have bailed.
But it's still, as you're saying, not traditional, but it's still considered.
It would still be considered an out-of-body experience. Yes.
Given all these different labels and that.
Absolutely.
Right.
What did Raphael look like? I know you said the green
eminence. So for me
like
at that time, that time, it was this beautiful green energy, and it had what I would say is like the impression of what we would see an angel with now at this time, right? Like how we would imagine what an angel looks like. Now, 40 years later or 35, I don't have that experience. They just come as energy, as light beings. But then I think I needed the form so that I wasn't scared, because everything around me was so scary. Yeah. And I would actually see that green energy as I would breathe it in. I would see it move through, like it started at my feet. It would move up my body. It would come all the way up. It would move around the infected area, which I didn't even know what it looked like because I couldn't sit up. And then I would breathe out the gut. So I literally had this experience of the visual, the auditory. I embodied it was absolutely, I knew the presence. Like, it was all of your intuitive clairvoyant, audience, sentient, cognizant, all of them, and embodied inside of me.
Wow.
And what was amazing was the next day, once my fever broke, they said, okay, you're going to be here for a couple of weeks to get healthy. I checked out the next day. I said, you know what? One way or another, he told me I'm healed. I'm leaving. And it was a long time to actually be healed, but the start of it, that's all I needed. Right. And so I left because I said, I'm going to see my baby.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. When you see energies now, I don't know if you could see this if I hold it up. Can you see that?
Yep.
Is that anything that you're familiar with?
It takes on a lot of so a lot of people will see what we call orbs now, and people see that and they think it has to be like a perfect circle. It's all different forms of energy. So it can be more, it doesn't have to be like perfectly round. It can have a bit of form, different shapes. Sometimes it looks a little bit like electricity, like a lightning kind of storm.
Yeah, I was just curious because this was my store that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And it appeared, and when this was regular photographs that were, when he developed them.
Sure, yeah.
So I actually went to the camera shop because I know I'm a former X-ray tech too. So when you have with it's called static, it shows up on a film like white, like you said, like lightning.
Sure.
The people at the photography, they said no, they didn't know what that was, and that shouldn't be that color. So
Yeah, I
okay.
would say that's for sure angelic presence.
Yeah,
I mean, it could also be spirits, but the angelic presence, especially if you had an angel store, they're hanging around. So
for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. So, those were a couple of experiences that really just gave me the absolute validation. And then you would think that with having these experiences that then I would be like, okay, and jump like 100% on board. But I still had this sense of like self-value and self-worth struggle that like, I don't want to take up their time because there's probably people that are more important than me that need more than I do. Right. And so that was kind of the journey for the next 10 years until I opened up to actually embrace this and do the work I do now.
Sonny, don't you find that after you went through that horrific experience that you see life completely different now that everything is so precious?
It absolutely was for a time. It faded away. It did for several years. I felt like that and I saw things through a different lens. Right. And then I think life happened and I got busy and I got into the details of life and I forgot until I remembered again. And that was another life experience that caused me to remember. And that time I didn't lose it. So now, absolutely, I've been able to reclaim that. But for probably about 8 years or so, I think I just got so into just trying to, survive and take care of everybody and do all the things you do that I lost it for a little bit, quite honestly.
You're still clairsentient now.
Yeah, I mean, all of those clairs, they all come at the same time now. So there's not really one that's actually stronger anymore. Probably just because I'm in this. I teach it every day. It's part of my life. But clairsentient, I would say, is always my go-to.
Okay.
Could we share with the audience, and this is what I used to share when I had because I had an angel shop holistic healing center, and I used to share with people because you would hear the things of people having near deaths or a horrific car accident, and that's when they would envision, because of course you cry out for help no matter who you are. When something happens, instinctively we just go, help me, whoever, right?
Yep.
And I would say to people, don't wait. You don't have to wait until you're in crises.
Yes.
Have them come in, but they want to be invited and asked in. Is that?
Arlene, that is something I teach every time I teach is, hey, you need to ask and don't wait till you're on death's door to do it. Exactly. Don't do what I did. Right. You don't have to wait till you're on death's door. Ask now in whatever the situation is. So every morning I start my day as part of my spiritual practice is I ask. Every single day without exception, I ask. I am open to receive all of the love and abundance and support of the universe. And I ask for help in every area that I need and want and don't even know that I need yet.
Let me ask this quick question. Why do you feel, and like you said, like Joanne asked that question and you said you did it for a while and then everyday life happens. Mm-hmm. This is always perplexing to me. We know these miracles happen instantaneously. They're around us every moment and we could do so much more even than what we're doing. But yet we, like you said, we go off and it's just either we forget, we get so busy. Why do we do that? I mean, I do it myself. I think Joanne, you do it too. We all do.
Life.
Sure.
We're busy.
I think that one of the things is we start to focus more on the physical than the non-physical. We forget our true essence and we focus on the essence that takes up the most time, which is the humanness, the feeding and sleeping and watering and making a living and caretaking and all of those things. We see the result of those immediately. It's instant gratification. I do this and then this happens, where with the spirit realm, when we're connected to the spirit realm, there's such an easy piece. There isn't this, okay, when I do this and I see this, it's more of this constant energy that's flowing. And I think a lot of times we distract ourselves with the humanness to not be in a place of connectedness with our spirits. Because that place, you have to be really honest with yourself and it's not always easy.
Sure. Sonny, I meant to ask you, your mom, her name is Solara?
It is.
Did she teach spirituality back in the 80s or 90s?
This is what she did. So she renamed herself when she got divorced about 17 years ago.
Okay.
And when I was growing up from about the age of 10 until about 15, she was trying to figure out her way. So she was raised Mormon, and she, at 16, she's like, that's not my gig, but she didn't know what was, and she wanted to find something. So when then she had kids, and she's a caretaker, so she focused on all that. But when I was about 10, she started going to different churches. She started looking into different religions, different belief systems. And by the time I was about 12, she had found spirituality, metaphysics, new age, whatever term you want to call it. And that really resonated with her. She was a beautiful, intuitive, she's alive. So I said was meaning at that time, she practiced it a lot. Right.
Such a beautiful story. Oh my God.
And and so she finally stepped into who she really is when she changed her name to fit more of her nature in who she is. So she wasn't a teacher, but what they did, that underground psychic, the reason she knew the underground psychic is because they would have classes, and what they would do is each week somebody else would host it, kind of like Tupperware parties.
Sure.
But they would do it that way so that not too many people asked too many questions. Right. So one family would have it one time, and then somebody else would have it. And there's only a group of maybe 8 or 10, but one was an astrologist, one was a hypnotherapist, one was a psychic, one was a crystal healer. And then there were 4 or 5 that were just interested in it. And so they would just take turns so that they could learn and grow. And then they would read all the old Edgar Cayce books and things like that, and then practice and work on developing with each other.
That's amazing. Especially in the area. Oh my gosh.
So out of all your businesses and all your endeavors and so forth and so on, what is the closest to your heart that makes your heart sing and resonate, want to continue to grow?
Oh my goodness. That's so hard because
I have so many.
I have so many because
I don't even know all of them, but Joanne.
I think probably I have a community. It's called Elevate Your Life. And I spend a lot of time in there teaching about spirituality and angels and connecting with our deceased loved ones. And I also talk about basics of life. I think so often we get so involved in all this external stuff. And I think we really have to come back to basics. And a lot of people forget the basics, and then the basics of our spiritual connection. So, learning how to ask for help and get grounded, maintain your energy, those kinds of things. I think that's probably my biggest passion, that and helping people that are intuitives build their businesses. Because, back in the day when I started it 24 years ago, nobody was doing this stuff, and there was no teachers to have, and you couldn't go take a class, and there wasn't like this is the way. It was, I muddled my way through it, just like probably you guys did in at that time, right?
Joanne and I were talking about that as, 30 years ago, we started. There were 3 angel books. That was it.
Exactly.
There wasn't anything else.
It was all witches and spells, Sonny.
Exactly. Yeah. Back in the day when I was first opened up to angels, I wanted to go learn more. And so I went to the library as a 13-year-old, and I said, I need a book on angels and how to communicate with angels. And the woman looked at me like I had 3 heads.
You're crazy.
And she sent me to the occult section. And in the occult section was astrology book, 2 numerology books, and a book on runes. That was it.
Isn't that amazing? But that's the way it was.
But look how it's flipped. I mean, something's happened where people are opening up to spirituality because there's a big shift.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't even know. I've written 12 angel books, so I don't even know how many angel books there are, but there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions at this point. So obviously there's a shift, and I'm not a big fan of media and news media and things like that. However, I do have to say that in my career, when shows like Medium came out, John Edwards doing his thing, sometimes on some of the old talk shows, even like Donahue, they'd have John Anderson. When they started having do you remember John Anderson?
We met him, Joanne, in Florida. It was called out of the audience.
Yeah.
He used to do this.
Yes.
Oh, I remember that. Oh my God.
Remember him? He was one of the first ones ever out on TV and that was in the 70s that he actually did that.
And he would say, okay, I have this name and stand up, but it's for deceased people that that's that name. And we're sitting there right towards the front of the road, Joanne. And he goes, Arlene. And I looked at her and I said, well, I'm not dead. He goes, Arlene, here, now, press it. And I went, what?
How can I stand up? Stand up. That's you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a blast from the past. So I do, give credit to the media in that way, that it's brought this outside of being in the closet and actually opened it up more mainstream. Because when I first started, it was so difficult.
Woo-woo. I was laughed at when I was opening up my store because there were a lot of men that had businesses in the area, and they go, "You're doing what?" They laughed at me like, "Ugh." And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, exactly.
I mentioned the word light workers even like 20 years ago when I named the Light Workers Conference. They looked at me like, what is that? Is this an electrical engineer?
Right. What does that mean? Exactly.
You're going to teach us how to hang a chandelier? That's what I was speaking on the phone.
Yeah. There just wasn't awareness.
Yeah. Well, we could go on and on, but we are.
Oh my God, we need you back. There's too much to cover.
Yeah. Will you come back?
Sure. Absolutely.
It was
absolutely.
Wonderful. So the show is, Beacons of Balance. So it's about balance. And what could you share with our audience as far as how do you bring balance into your own personal, i.e. your life and your families and so forth? What do you do? What do you do yourself?
My kids are grown now, so I don't bring balance to them at all. I figured out I couldn't control them. So and hopefully they're learning how to balance their lives. But I think, for me, it's changed over the years, and I can really, if I'm being 100% honest, haven't always been great with balance. I am better at balance now than I probably have been in my entire life. And I'm still not fantastic at it because I kind of like to do everything, and I kind of have tendency to be extreme. But one of the things I do that really brings me into that centered space every morning is I do 5 things. And one of them is I meditate. The second one is I call in my angels and I ask for help. The third one is I invite Archangel Michael into my space to help me to maintain my energy every single day. The fourth one is I ask, how may I serve? And the fifth is when I take a step on the floor, whatever that is, the first step I take, I say thank you.
Oh, those are great. Great.
Help me to bring
those
back.
Are wonderful.
Oh my God. It's so good to see you, Sunny. I can't even begin to tell you.
It's great to see you. And thank you guys so much for having me. It was fun.
Thank you for being here. And thank you everyone for watching, listening. For those listening, just get out of here. For those that can't see us, I'm saying get out of your headspace and drop into your heart space.
Right.
It's always about love. Remember, each of you matter. You're very important to all of us.
Right.
And
whatever you do, make it count. Life's precious, really precious.
Remember to be the beacons of light that you are, and just shine it out to everyone. We need this. We need peace in this world. So we love.
Sunny's information will be posted.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Everybody, I always forget this. Remember to subscribe, leave comments. And Sunny, all your information will be posted below. You can find all her information I'm sure you have workshops, talks, your books, everything will be listed there. Joanne, anything else?
There's so much. I mean, well, like I said, we didn't even get into you being a psychic detective for the program.
I know. I got a lot of different things going on. So
yeah, girl,
you have too many. Oh, and I love your heart, by the way.
Thank you. Me too. I love that. The tree. I love it.
It's a tree.
Shoulder.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be happy to come back and we'll talk about one of the other areas if you like, ladies. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, yes.
Thank you so much,
Sunny. Love you, sister.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Have a great one. Bye-bye.